Very good. Do any of your youngsters know the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go on with our agenda. We're going to do our roll call, and then we'll ask you kids to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So Carl, will you do the roll call to open our meeting, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne.
Here.
Lunsman.
Here.
Slate Hansen.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bunceness.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Rux.
Here.
Santa Leibson.
Here.
So if you'll all stand, and when I start, you kids join in and lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well done. So, did we have any more songs to sing? We're not that busy. Well, let's listen to another one. So, who decides? Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll ask him. We've had a suggestion that Drew and Carl do the next to Carol. You're not on the agenda, though. So.
For a good reason.
Okay. So we'll get back to our agenda and entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last week.
So moved. Second.
Motion Rux and second by Johnson. If there are no changes, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. No one signed up for open forum. So we move on to old business and our ordinance 1801 relating to public nuisances, and I'd entertain a motion for final adoption.
Moved. Second.
Motion Bunceness, second by Rux.
Can you pull up the screen? You guys got your screens on?
I understand Councilmember Olson has an amendment.
Yes, I would like to make a minor change to the existing ordinance if our city attorney would pull that up.
Got her up for you.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, it's
So the first minor change again is just restoring that language that was added in the end, just deleting that, so actually that would no longer be a change at all to the existing language of the ordinance. So to remove that phrase "and are not stored inside a building," and then the other would be an addition, and again to clarify the junk interoperable portion of the ordinance, to add junk and inoperable in front of disassembled bicycles. And again, those two would be minor changes and would not require another reading.
Second.
We have a second by Ronay and Carl. Mike, you want to tell us why you did this?
Well, I think that's appropriate. Brett and Ron both suggested it, and I feel it's appropriate and proper changes.
I will tell you that the language, deleted language, and are not stored inside a building, it occurred to us that we may, if we were to put that language, keep that language in there, it would be difficult to deal with hoarders. We do have a number of hoarders in the community, and so we thought it best to remove that language.
Okay. Questions or comments on the amendment? If not, all those in favor of making that change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. That would lead us to the main motion, and I'm informed by our city attorney that this was not a significant enough change to prevent this from being final adoption. So, questions, comments, or discussion before we vote on final adoption? Carl?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
No.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slade Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye. Motion carries. It's all yours now, Brett.
Yay.
Next on the agenda, we have possible second reading of the ordinance establishing the number of regular full-time positions, titles, etc. Carl, any changes on this?
Just the addition of the school resource officer that was noted. The one other, if you're trying to compare last year's to this year's, during 2018, we changed operations in City Hall to add a full-time staff person to that. So, but the savings that we'll have in contractual services makes up for the difference.
Okay.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Ronayne and second by Johnson for second reading, final adoption. Questions, anyone? Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Slade Hansen.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, and that motion carries. Ordinance 181204 is end of the year ordinance supplementing 2018 budgets to put everything in the right column. Anything changed from last week, Carl?
No changes from last week. Thank you.
Need a motion then to final adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Remley and second by Rux. Questions on any? David?
Carl, police department had a very large amount of overtime, 128,000. Or maybe someone else can answer this question. Was that due to lack of staff?
For the open positions, yes, which created problems with the various different shifts.
Okay.
Other questions on the motion? If not, we have a motion and a second for final adoption. Carl?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slade Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye. Motion carries, and our final item under old business was passed last week, the ordinance regulating jake breaks. Anything new on that?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Need a motion then for final.
Move.
Motion Johnson, second by Olson. Questions on this one?
I have one question to Robin. How much would be the signs if we had to pay for these signs by ourselves?
$100 a piece. It's not.
How many do we have up?
Oh, there's probably 8 or 10 of them.
Other questions? We have a motion and a second. Carl, roll call, please.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Slade Hansen.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. Next, our consent calendar, items A through D, routine city business.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Ronayne, second by Remley. Questions on any of those? All in favor of approving them all, then say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. Under new business, we have a petition submitted to vacate public right-of-way, and city attorney says we have an adjustment, or one of you?
Councilman Ronayne had noted that the resolution as included in the packet did not provide for the recommended stipulations that the staff had for the vacation of this property at Lancelot Drive. So what you have before you is a revised resolution that makes the vacation subject to the satisfaction of those recommended stipulations, and those stipulations are in the staff report. And I'm not sure what the details were of those, but this would require that the filing not be permitted until there's either compliance with or written acceptance of those stipulations.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Rooney, second by Lunsman. Any considerations here of the fact that we're approving something that was different than when in the public notice on Thursday?
No.
Oh, no problem with that. All right. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. The piece of property that is to the northeast of this pretty significant piece of property, and I understand, I realize that Sacred Heart owns this piece of property that we're talking about tonight, but access to that piece of property I would think would be pretty important. Is there any potential that the access would come from this Lansot Drive in the future?
No. When Homes Are Possible was looking at that piece of property, they contacted the church wanting to have access across their property, whether it was towards the cemetery or even up close to the railroad right-of-way that runs through there. And the church wasn't willing to give that. And we'd also have to extend Lancelot Drive to the north as well through the church's property, and they weren't willing to do that either. And then you also have a drainage ditch that runs through there. They would have to put some sort of crossing through there, whether it be a box culvert or something. That was rather expensive as well. So right now, the only access that planning can see, and Robin can correct me, would be where Ackerman Drive comes in, but there again, a bridge structure, something's going to have to be put across Moccasin Creek at that point too, in order to make that property developable.
Right.
Right
and-
now, there's only one route of ingress and egress at Hyman Drive.
And so the other option is come across the railroad tracks someplace from the north.
Which the railroad has already turned that down
because
as well.
there's too many
That's correct.
crossings already. So, I mean, is talking to the church still our best option, or doing something in that direction? So I'm curious if this is a
And-
wise decision.
And that's possible. But even if this right-of-way is vacated, we can always have right-of-way dedicated at some other point in time if the church is agreeable to whoever decides to
Okay.
develop.
So there are options.
There's always options.
Okay.
Mike, you
I'm
had
not
your
sure
hand
I
up?
Well, I was
like
wondering-
the options, but
I was wondering if Brett could elaborate on the stipulations.
Sure. These stipulations were, excuse me, also approved by the Planning Commission when they approved this. The first one is that they must replat their properties to include the newly vacated right-of-way and avoid having a landlocked parcel, and that'd be the one to the north. A utility easement shall be maintained for any utilities currently located within the right-of-way, and an access easement must be established to allow city employees access to the levee, which runs along the eastern boundary of the petitioner's property.
Okay.
Now, we tried to do our homework when we went through this vacation. We do that with all of them. So to answer your questions, Dave, we tried to make sure we covered all boundaries for all the properties adjacent to it.
Other questions, anyone on the motion? If not, we have a motion and a second to approve this petition to vacate public right-of-way. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
no.
Motion carries. Item B, purchase of electronic timekeeping system. Lynn?
Our Human Resources Director, Jill Moore, has a short presentation that she'd like to give you on this particular request that gives justification of need.
Sure, and did everybody see the
You got to come to the front.
Is the green light on?
Yep. So I think Lynn handed out the request for council action with all the details on it, but I just wanted to mention a few other things. Currently, we process about 272 full-time employees. However, we average about 400 employees at any given time. And then during the summer months, we see an increase to about 632 employees. And then each of these 632 employees' time cards are handwritten, signed off by the employee, then reviewed and signed off by the supervisor, then forwarded to HR, and finally entered into the payroll system, one time card at a time by hand. This process is outdated and extremely inefficient. ExecuTime electronic timekeeping would bring us to the 21st century and give us real-time data and reporting capabilities.
Okay, and the amount requested for this, $65,372.
Correct.
Move approval.
that you, Dave?
It was,
Oh, motion by Clint, second by Ronayne to approve this. Questions from anyone? Alan?
Next to last line here in the request for council action says that allows us to stay current with new releases without additional cost in the future. So is this a one-time fee then, or are there
Correct.
subscriptions going
There's a
forward?
licensing fee every year that'll be like any other IT software, just the licensing fee.
Sure. Curious how much that is?
I can't recall off the top of my mind. I think about $7
I think it's $8,000.
or $8,000.
Yeah. And the neat part about this program is the various different departments have different types of pay structures, and so we can program this right into the timekeeping cards, and so it will actually help us prevent errors sometimes when you have these specialized pays for various different workers that work in the various different divisions. You know, like for example, I'm not picking on police, but they have some, you know, they have a afternoon shift, they have a night shift, and then they also have some resource officers paid different than the regular officers, and so there's a lot of different attributes that are attached to the employees. Well, it'll be simpler to keep track of this, no different than parks too.
Have we been storing these cards and filing them away all these years? How far are we going to be able to go back and get rid of them?
I think we have a retention policy. that
I would hope
requires
so.
7 years. I think
7 years?
7 years, but I think we keep them a lot longer than that is what I'm
Correct.
seeing so far.
Yeah.
So we don't follow our policy.
And then another benefit to this system as well is right now, when people request PTO, they manually fill out a form. It's signed by their supervisor. This system will allow them to actually view their balances, and then also if they put a time off request in, it automatically generates an email. So if I want to take a day off, Lynn would get an email and he'd approve it via email. It would automatically come off my PTO balance.
is this a computer-based or, okay. So this is similar probably to what the state has, where everything's done on a computer and you can do all that without,
Correct.
okay.
The neatest part about the entire program is Carl uses the same company for
Right.
software for other accounting aspects, and so it will integrate into our existing
Shouldn't be any
system.
problems in that direction.
Right. So we won't have to work with multiple vendors, and if we have an issue, we won't have vendors that are pointing
Right.
fingers because they're working for the same company.
So I had a question. It says sufficient monies are within the IT budget. This was not budgeted for? This is something,
The program itself wasn't, but there's sufficient leftover monies where it would cover the cost in the budgeted amount.
okay.
Does this cost the $65,000? Does that include the cards, the plastic, all of the pieces that we'll have to give to each of the employees?
Actually, anywhere there's a computer, they can clock in on the computer. There's some small additional costs associated with the time clocks, but we wouldn't have to purchase badges and so forth because there's biometrics with that too, so we can do just a thumbprint or we can use a code on the card. I just recently implemented a system like this out at Twin City Fan, and it worked really. It's a slick. Wasn't the same company, but an electronic timekeeping system.
Does this require any added memory for our computer systems or anything like that that would need to expand and cost us more money there?
Not that I'm aware of right now.
It's for the long-term storage and such?
I know they have, this particular system can be an iCloud-based system, but right now we're choosing to go on our server.
Yeah, we chose to keep it internal versus doing iCloud because we have sufficient space. Given time, we probably will have to upgrade our hardware, but that's a constant upgrade in itself, and so we just get more capacity.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on the motion? We have a motion to approve that request to spend the $65,372 for this system. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Jim. Next on our agenda, we'll ask the city attorney to tell us about the request to go ahead with an agreement on municipal code recodification.
Thank you, Mayor. The city is periodically required to review and recodify, if necessary, its municipal code. That review cannot occur. The language in the statute is not oftener than 5 years. And the last recodification that was done by the city of Aberdeen was in 2011. What we are seeing more frequently in light of the number of supplementations that we've had, that's 12 since 2011, and we're seeing quite a few uniformity issues with the existing code. So what we're proposing is that we go through a recodification process, and we would request that the council approve the Municipal Code Corporation to complete that. I had provided, along with the council action request, a copy of the quotation that was provided to me from Municipal Code Corporation, also known as MuniCode. And I wanted to make clear that the executive summary on page 2 and 3 of the packet, I'm speaking only about the recodification. The supplement service and the online hosting are separate items. We actually have some of those already. But what we're talking about for purposes of the recodification is a process that will take all of a year. And we're requesting that the council authorize Lynn to sign an agreement for the $23,950 to complete that.
Moved.
Yeah, second.
Motion Busness and second by Johnson. Questions, anyone? All those in favor of entering that agreement, then say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. Next on our agenda, Lynn and our transportation director have brought a person here today to be appointed as a new member of the Regional Airport Board. Lynn?
Yes, we're making the recommendation to appoint John Alman. The previous individual had a change within his work, and so therefore he believed he would not be able to attend any more than maybe 50% of the meetings, and the board is fairly small, and John had shown interest earlier, and so we thought to make the best of the situation that we had, Eric resigned and asked John to come in and do a replacement for Eric.
I move the appointment. Second.
Motion Ronin, second by Remley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Welcome, John. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's some long meetings. You've been at them.
You know I have.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thank you for volunteering.
Absolutely.
Yep. Item E on our agenda, bills presented for payment from city departments, $929,754. Northwest Energy Utilities, a revised number there, $43,225. A payment for cast fees for the Moscow Ballet Troupe to an entity identified as QBZ 793 Inc., and that was $917. CenturyLink phone charges, $39.26. Barnes Group postage, $42.36. JP Cook pet tags for the treasurer's office, $92. Meal allowance for Rich at an airport conference, $156. 4,370 gallons of de-icing fluid for the airport, $20,801 to NAS Industrial. A payment to NVC for services at the airport, $307. American News, notice of sale of the airport runway broom, $563. Northern Electric Utilities, $67.65. And a Nissan forklift for the street department, $22,840 to Lift Solutions, Inc.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Busness and second by Olson. See, de-icer fluid, have we been using a lot, or is this just a...
Actually, we have. We've got enough on hand now. We've got about 3,400 gallons on hand.
I was thinking with the temperature between 25 and 35 degrees here for about 3 weeks, have you been de-icing?
Well, we had two significant events, and we used a grand total of close to 3,000 gallons during those two events. So, at almost $6 a gallon,
No.
We try to use it judiciously, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay.
Hear more.
Questions on any of the other bills? Carl, roll call to pay him.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. We have another late addition to the payroll, knowing that we were going to be skipping next week's meeting. We wanted to get people paid, or a late addition to the agenda, I should say. So we have the payroll item on here, and it is for December 9 through 22.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second by Ronayne. Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. Anything from you, Lynn?
Yes, I have 3 items. 2 of the items relate to, I just wanted to give you advance notice of some upcoming events that you'll see in January. The first one is Brett has scheduled the presentation of the Aberdeen Growth Plan with Santec Consultants in association with Helms and Associates. And that was, as I stated, January 7th. And then on January 14th, Robin, Brett, Carl, Ron, and I have been talking about system development fees, and we're hoping on the 14th of January we can have kind of like a work session atmosphere to bring forth some of the ideas that we've had relating to development fees.
Okay, anything from anyone else before we adjourn?
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Is that a moved?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion Bunceness, second by Olson to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. Got a use for this?
I do it.